Hmm. Hello, friends, and welcome to this short video about the Honors Thesis Symposium. As you know, a typical rhythm in the spring for the Honors Thesis experience is that you submit your final paper end of March, beginning of April. Then you have about a 2-week period in which to prepare your PowerPoint talk for the Honors Thesis Symposium. And at the Honors Thesis Symposium, we have a series of talks that happen across concurrent rooms throughout Buller Hall. You're expected to give a 20-minute formal talk and to then field 10 minutes of questions at the thesis symposium. So please remember that your honors research advisor typically introduces you. So be sure to reach out to him or her and ask that he or she prepare to give you a short introduction. This can highlight some of your achievements in your work here at Andrews, as well as indicate your next step plans, what comes after life at Andrews. And so they will introduce you, then you'll proceed to give your 20-minute talk and then field questions afterwards. So the expectation is that you will participate all afternoon in the sessions, that you'll listen to your colleagues as they present their work, ask them questions, and that we will have a lovely conversation learning about one another's work. So again, you can find lots of this information in the handbook, so I'll be brief here. But remember that since you're speaking to an interdisciplinary audience, you have to always be using language that we will recognize across the field. So you want to introduce your project, give some context for it, indicate your main research questions. Then, of course, over the course of the talk, you're going to summarize your methods, your results, and indicate, of course, what work might continue. So I've listed here a few of the things non-experts often ask, so people from outside your field will be curious about. So for example, they're often interested in knowing the significance of your work and how it fits into a larger context. Some research is simply expanding the boundaries of what we know as human beings. However, an audience does like for you to imagine, well, what might the application of your investigation be? So have an answer to this question of what is the significance of your work? And if it is a kind of pure discovery, then what might future applications look like? In addition, non-experts are often wanting to really grasp what your research is about and to particularly understand how the methods you've chosen are suited to the questions that you ask, your research questions. So have a really clear explanation for why your methods are perfectly suited to the things that you're exploring. In addition, another thing across the disciplines that we're trying to sort out is how each of us establishes the validity of our results. So again, think about how you would articulate why your results can be trusted. What is the standard of validity in your discipline? And be sure that you anticipate having to answer questions about that. So as you set up your PowerPoint, be certain that you're using visual aids as appropriate. Think also about the quality of resolution of those visual aids so that they will look nice and be readable when they're on a big screen in a classroom. Again, think about how you have to think carefully about the terms that you use. What terms need to be defined for your interdisciplinary audience? What portion of the kind of theoretical frame or the foundational background does a listener have to have? And you should always be thinking about, how can I translate my work for a broader audience? Many of you I know give specialized talks in your own departments or at conferences for people who speak the same disciplinary language as you do. But the thesis symposium is really about speaking across the disciplines. So again, give a mind to that question of, what does an interdisciplinary audience need to know? What illustrations will help make my research relevant to that audience? And be thinking about how you could show that your research is part of a larger arc of research, that there's more things that can be done. There might be limitations to your own study that can be addressed in subsequent ones, and so on. And most certainly, if you're involved in a lab that's had a number of honors thesis projects, Honors Council members love to hear how your work is related to previous honors thesis work as well. I've listed here the required slide content for your PowerPoint. This is also found in the honors handbook. All the basic things need to be there: your name, your mentor's name, your various department affiliations, your honors affiliation. Be certain to acknowledge all sources of funding. So if you received an undergraduate research scholarship, or if you and your mentor have external funding, that should absolutely be indicated in the PowerPoint, as should your institutional review board number if you had to have IRB approval for using human subjects. Of course, when you're speaking across the disciplines, it's important to use structural language in your talk that we'll recognize. So things like: the goal of my research is, my research questions were, my methods were these, here are my results, here are my conclusions, here's what I think future research should be. These are language markers that work across disciplines and can help your listener slot your research into a framework that they have for research as well. So I urge you to use those as headings as you're organizing the PowerPoint talk. And again, be certain to give a good thought to: at what point should you define certain terms? How much must your audience know to make sense of the project? And then deploy your definitions at crucial moments in the talk. Again, do think about how your PowerPoint is laid out. Is it readable? Are any kind of graphs carefully labeled so that they'll work well for you as an illustration in your talk? Proofread the slides carefully, have someone else look at them as well. Of course, your mentor should give you feedback. You should rehearse your talk with your mentor, also with a friend from outside your discipline, so you get a good sense of: are you communicating not just to specialists, but to non-experts about your work? And certainly have very clear in your own mind what the logic of your talk is. Don't be hesitating between slides, wondering, as it were, what comes next. We should feel as listeners very confident in your knowledge of your slide content and of the logic with which you move from one slide to another. So you can use questions as a nice transition. You can use signal words that, again, do the work of carrying a listener from one slide to the next one quite seamlessly. The PowerPoint should, of course, include a bibliography, so we know your major resources. It's lovely to conclude with an acknowledgement slide. This allows you to thank your research mentor and any other members of your lab and anyone who's been a support to you through the research experience. So in addition to preparing the PowerPoint talk, honors thesis presenters also submit an abstract of their work for the program, and they also prepare a handout. You are graded on the handout at the event, so be certain, at the Thesis Symposium event. So be certain to give some thought to organizing it. It's a 2-page handout, or a front and a back, and it should include title, your name, all these good things, as well as a short, the 100-word abstract summary of your project, an outline of your talk so people can follow along as you're speaking, and then a selected annotated bibliography. So again, these are key resources, foundational precedent studies that set up your work. And it's not, of course, all your resources, but it's a selected annotated bibliography that should be part of your handout. And again, that gets evaluated. So I'm going to say a little bit more about evaluation of the Honors Thesis Symposium talks. So these get evaluated by everyone who hears the talk. If you look in the Honors Handbook, you will see that there are 3 different evaluative tools. The first one is for sciences and social sciences. And so take a look at the questions that are there, the categories of point value, to ensure that you are planning a PowerPoint and a talk that clearly demarcate the things that are being evaluated. There's also one for artistic and professional projects and performances. So if you're doing a performance or you drafted a creative writing project, you are evaluated by that tool. And then for those in the humanities and fine arts who do analytical projects, there's also an evaluation tool for that. So take a look at those evaluation forms so that you are anticipating how you will be graded. And remember that your grade in Honors 398 is based on the evaluations of the Honors Council members and faculty members who are attendant in the room. So when they are grading your talk, the Honors Council members will also have their previous notes from when you defended your project. So again, pull up those lists of recommendations from when you defended your proposal and be ready to sort of answer any questions people might have about what of those recommendations you did attend to. And so typically then the evaluations take a couple of weeks to tabulate, and then we send out your scores and your comments as well. So the honors office is responsible for changing your deferred grade in Honors 398, and that happens about 2 weeks after the thesis symposium. And then your research mentor is responsible for assigning the specialist grade to your research, and that's under the Honors 497 registration, and there should be at least 2 credits of those on your transcript. So again, if you received a deferred grade in those credits earlier on, do remind your research mentor that he or she will need to assign a final grade for your excellent work. So remember how we divide up scoring in the honors thesis experience. The 1 credit in Honors 398 is really a grade that is rooted in the quality of your interdisciplinary discussion and your ability to share your research across the fields. And then the 2 credits of Honors 497, that's where you're receiving the grade from a specialist, from your mentor, about the quality of your contribution to your field. So if you have any questions about what should be in your PowerPoint, about how to prepare, please check the Honors Handbook. Our Honors website has a number of sample PowerPoints from a thesis symposium across the disciplines, so you can find some resources there as well. And as always, I look forward to learning about your scholarship and hearing about your discoveries. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck as you prepare. Take good care.